What's up, comic book fans? Pete here from Comic Books Transformed, where me and my good friend Brian right over there talk about comic books that have been adapted into movies and streaming shows. For a few weeks now, we've been covering Agatha All Along, the newest Marvel television show that's streaming on Disney Plus. And I think this week, Brian, I think we finally might have gotten something that we actually wanted from the MCU. What do you
Yeah,
think?
absolutely. Yeah, because we're covering episodes 5 and 6 today, and the big stinger at the end of 5. Spoilers, which you probably already know because it's been 2 weeks now, basically.
Yes.
But Teen is officially Billy Kaplan / Billy Maximoff, and it was kind of obvious for the most part. They tried to sow a few seeds of doubt, making us think it was potentially Nicholas Scratch. I think maybe there's some other theories out there at some point. Probably someone thought it was Mephisto. Who knows?
Probably.
But yeah, I mean, this is just one step closer to assembling the Young Avengers. Although I do question whether or not we'll actually get them in a solo movie. I personally, I really do like the Young Avengers. I was very surprised at how much I liked it. The original series, what year did that come out? Was that like 07, 08?
It's been a really long time. Yeah, probably like 07. I think it was like before The Dark Knight came out. And that was 08. And it was before Iron Man, which is 08.
Yeah, I just remember reading it. You probably even told me to read it. And it was just really good. It was written by Alan Heinberg.
Yeah.
Who I think his name I only remember because he also wrote The OC, which
yeah.
my wife loved and I eventually started to like.
Yes.
It was one of those things where I sit down and I'm like, this is stupid. I'm like, wait, what are they going to do next? And then
yeah. What's the name of the guy who plays the comic book guy in the OC?
The actor is Adam Brody, and I know that because my wife is still obsessed with him. She's currently obsessing over, oh my God, what's it called?
Nobody Wanted This?
No, Nobody Wants This, yeah.
Yeah. My wife and I just started watching that. I think he's great and everything, but just to kind of tie it back to the OC, like you were talking about, I think that show really did have an influence on all of this shit that we're always covering and talking about, because I think that show kind of made comic books seem like they could be hip, right?
Yeah. It's so funny too, because clearly that the show was meant to be about the cooler, popular kids. But it eventually, the character of Seth Cohen was so popular that it kind of shifted to be more about him than I think it was initially meant to be.
What his name was Seth Tone?
Seth Cohen.
Oh, Cohen. Okay. I was gonna say it sounds a lot like Deftone, but okay. Well, that's cool. Yeah, and this show was like the coolest. This episode 6, was like the coolest episode of Agatha so far. But before we get to 6, let's just go through 5 real quick. So we get the Salem 7, and I have this teenage kid that I work with at my side job. He's watching the show right now. He was saying that the Salem 7 are legitimately scary, and I was like, I think he's actually right. What do you think?
I agree. Yeah. I still think about that first episode or second episode where that one's like creeping down the stairs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we got even more of that in episode 5.
Yes, we did.
And I think some of them even talk too. But it's funny because they are in the comics and they are all after Agatha because Agatha essentially murdered all of them.
Yeah.
Now, when we were watching the trailer for the show, they had this one shot where it showed all these witches on broomsticks. And I was like, oh, man, this looks like Hocus Pocus. It was actually maybe the shot that made me not want to watch the show the most. Well, we got it in episode 5. Well, what did you think of that? Like them fighting with these big sticks, then they were flying on brooms.
I like when they add these kind of like lore reasons to this established kind of accepted mythology.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, witches ride brooms, but no, it's like they take big sticks and they do a little ritual and whatever. I like things like that. Is it a little cheesy? Sure. But, I think it's fine. This show is about witches. It's, especially with the end credits, just showing all these like witches from, even real life events as well as pop culture. I think it works. I mean, it makes sense to be in the show. Did it really add to it? No, but that's fine. Didn't bother me.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that too. It's like it kind of had like a practical, at least within the story, reason for them to be on broomsticks, which is like you usually think of witches riding broomsticks. No, it's sort of like a cheesy kind of show, and it doesn't seem like it's a show that's made for guys like us. Episode 6 was the one that felt the most like a show made for guys like us. That's probably why I'm praising it so much. But regardless of who it's made for, I think that the thing that's making it good, what's making it appealing for me, is that Agatha kind of is an asshole. She's like a bad person.
Yeah, it starts off with her being kind of like mean, I guess.
Yeah.
And then she starts to soften and warm a little bit. But then episode 5 happens, and we do lose Alice.
Yeah, Alice.
We lose Alice, who's trying to save her, and I'm still kind of torn as if Agatha let it happen or not.
Right.
Like if she could have stopped it or anything like that. I am a little. I do want to understand how her special ability works a little more. It seems like she just absorbs anything that's thrown at her.
Yeah.
And, I don't know if she could have stopped it if she wanted to there or not.
Yeah, it's kind of ambiguous, and Catherine Hahn's doing this great job of like really, really playing into the idea that she's like selfish and doesn't care about anyone else, but then also just ever so like often giving like these little looks where she looks like she might feel bad for one of them or want to help one of them. But if there's like a percentage, I'd say it's like 80% or maybe even like 85% where she's selfish, she doesn't care about anyone else, and then like 20 to 25%, or I'm sorry, 20 to 15% where she has some compassion for them.
Yeah, and it really seems to be rooted. There's a distinct change since Aubrey Plaza said that Teen is not her son. She seems to kind of, let go of all that compassion, because I guess she's realizing, this is actually the spawn of my enemy in a way, not who I thought it was. So I'm wondering if that line there triggered something in her.
Yes. That's a really, really good point. And let's talk about Billy and stuff in a second. But like, just to kind of go with that evil side, apparently she killed her own mother, right?
Well, her mother was part of the 7.
Oh, she's
Wasn't she?
I don't know. I was doing some research, and I read that the mother was part of a coven whose daughters were the Salem 7.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And when the mother's ghost, because they have this whole like 80s theme thing, and they kind of make it a little bit like Evil Dead, where the house is kind of like a cabin, and then she gets possessed. She's very much like a person that's possessed by a deadite. She's attacking them, and the thing that she's possessed by is her mom's spirit. And so I was like, oh, it's pretty hardcore when you kill your own mom,
Yeah, definitely, yeah. And then your mom is haunting you.
Yes, my mom, just a funny little fact, I'm recording at her apartment right now. She watched Terrifier right before I started recording.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. I didn't watch it with her. I was taking a nap. But yeah, I was like, wow, okay, good for you. Anyway, the whole group, though, they're not all just altruistic, nice witches, though. They actually turn on Agatha pretty quickly in episode 5, too.
Yeah, because the whole thing, so this was, last week I expected this to be the episode with Lilia's backstory, but this trial was Agatha's trial, so it was mostly about her, and the whole idea was to punish Agatha, and everyone was kind of reminded that she's probably going to double cross them at some point, and they were willing to sacrifice her just to get what they wanted.
Yes. And in the middle of like them trying to sacrifice her, Teen just flips out and attacks them. He like controls the 2 that are still alive, And I don't really know what happens to Aubrey Plaza. Does she just kind of get like
Yeah,
blasted away?
I don't know what because she was not shown at all in episode 6.
Yeah. And then I'm trying to remember like what was the inciting thing, because something said, and I think it's something said about like his mother, and that's what like activates him, right?
So the first thing is that Teen is upset. Well, Billy is upset that Alice is dead, and then Agatha just doesn't care. And then Agatha throws back, "You're just like your mother."
Oh yeah,
and then it sets him off. He controls Jen and Lilia, and then everybody gets thrown in mud, but only Agatha comes out. And we see that. Yes, we do see the Scarlet Witch headgear. It's a blue color rather than red.
Yeah.
So it's a nice touch. And then we pick up at episode 6 from there, and we don't see the headgear again in 6.
You're right. We don't. It just kind of manifests and then it's gone. And okay, so episode 6, and I'm so excited to finally talk about it. It's a great episode because, I think that we both kind of agree that we had lowered expectations for this show. Then you get into it and you're like, okay, well, there's a pattern to this. They go to a new house every episode. It's sort of focused on one witch. And I think that because of the characters and how likable they are, you're bought in. But then this episode throws the whole formula out, and we just basically see Billy's life from when like he's affected by witchcraft to the present day. And I just think that like it felt so much more like the rest of the MCU stuff, but like in a good way. Did you feel that way?
Yeah. This is kind of like his origin story in a way, even though we've seen the character before. And I like the detail. I liked how they showed him interacting with all the other characters beforehand, essentially, and then coming to the conclusion that he needs to go find Agatha to get what he wants, which at the end of the episode, we find out is not the end of the episode, but we find out that his ultimate goal is to find his brother Tommy.
Right. That is pretty much the end. It's like in their conversation at the very end, like the last scene. Yeah. No, but it was interesting too, because like you said, he does interact with each of the different witches in the coven. The very first one is Lilia, who we start off with this bar mitzvah, which is like very, very jarring, because we've been for like multiple episodes, like 3 episodes at least, we're on the witch's road and everything kind of looks the same. The story kind of goes in the same way. And then all of a sudden we're just like in the past, and he's preparing for his bar mitzvah, right?
Yeah.
You're like, oh, Jewish stuff. Like, this is the real world. Like, what's going on, right?
Yeah.
And then like there's a fortune teller at his bar mitzvah. And I guess it's kind of like in the place of like one of those photo booths that you'd have at a wedding. They have a fortune teller. But like Lilia is the one that puts the sigil on him.
Yes. So she's there, is reading fortunes, reading palms, and she kind of she sees like a broken line or something like that saying it's 2 lives, and she kind of zones out once or twice, which we've seen her do in a few episodes prior. I still would like to. I still feel like that's an unresolved issue.
Agreed.
That I would like to learn more about. I don't know how much bearing it will have in the story, but yeah, she gives him the sigil ultimately to protect him. So I guess she saw something having to do with maybe Agatha and wanted to protect him. And I'm guessing the sigil was that no witch could know his name.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
So that was unexpected that it was her and not Agatha, or I mean, I guess I don't know who I was expecting it to be from.
Yeah, well, ditto. I think that initially I was thinking it was going to be from Wanda, like it was some kind of thing that was inherently from Wanda. But it's interesting because when that happens, when the fortune teller thing happens, another part that's jarring, it's like you're kind of like it's like whiplash, because you're at this bar mitzvah and you're like, whoa, this is different from everything, and then in the middle of the bar mitzvah, they're like, there's been an incident at the Dome in Westview. And you're like, whoa, what? We're in WandaVision all of a sudden. And that was like whiplash.
Yeah, that was interesting. I assume that he is from Eastview.
Right.
And it's just a nearby thing. And they just want everybody to be home and safe, which makes sense.
Right. And like just going along with what you said of like, well, we didn't know who put the sigil on her, or like why did she him, or why did she do it? It's like Wanda would still be alive at that point too, so she would maybe even want to protect him from Wanda.
Yeah. Yes.
Right.
That's a good point. Yeah. It could have been protected from Wanda. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, maybe she was trying to prevent the car accident from happening, or his life from splitting like that. So what's funny about the car accident, because okay, in this flashback, like the parents are all loving and everyone's being sarcastic, and you're like, okay, something awful is going to happen. I don't remember what happens to Billy's parents in the comics, but I think it is kind of rough. And then, like in the show, there's an accident, and so you always just kind of think, oh, the parents are going to die, because like superheroes are normally like orphans, or quite often orphans, right? But he's the one that dies, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
So I like that twist.
Yeah, that was definitely interesting there. And then we at that point see the cop, the responding cop that helps them is Alice, who we know has gone through many jobs from previous episodes.
Yeah. So the implication is essentially that like the twins, like their essence or their souls escaped from Westview, and then one of them went into Billy's body and the other one went into who would eventually be Tommy.
I mean, maybe. I mean, we do know that Billy, was attuned with more supernatural abilities here, more magic-based powers. So it's possible that, Tommy's just didn't go anywhere and his soul is just sitting somewhere, and maybe not necessarily in a body somewhere. That's what I'm kind of expecting here.
Interesting. So you don't think we're going to get like a MCU version of Speed?
That's a great question. I feel like we're not going to see an actor for it in this show if they do go that route. It just seems weird to just throw him at the very end without anything to do, and it's not like it's like a really crazily major character. I mean, he wasn't even was he even in the original Young Avengers book, or did they save him in the end of 2?
I don't think he's in like the initial like story arc, like the first.
Yeah, I think so I don't think he's as important to the Young Avengers as Billy is. So I could see a way here that they don't actually have him, especially with how the MCU kind of sidelined Quicksilver, in the one movie essentially.
Yeah, but I think that they sidelined Quicksilver because X-Men were still owned by Fox at that point, and now that everything is like Marvel's going to be mutants and stuff, I think they're going to be like, oh, here's a Quicksilver kind of guy.
Yeah, I could really see it going either way. I could see it saying that, this resolving where he does find his brother, it is also in another person's body in some way. Or I could also see it where it's they either don't find him or he's just like a spirit and that's it. I could see it going either way.
Yeah. I think that like there's going to be a post-credit scene in this show, which, okay, a few things, right? A few things. I feel like there hasn't really been any kind of interesting post-credit scenes in Marvel stuff since the Marvels, which, I mean, maybe there's been like one thing since the Marvels, but like in general, like some of the post-credit scenes on the shows have just been like funny versus like something interesting, or like, oh, here's this new revelation or this new character. But I feel like
they've all been that. Moon Knight gave us the third personality. She-Hulk gave us Scar. What else? What else was there? I forget.
Well, so are you saying that those are interesting? Because like I feel like Scar is just like, whatever, who gives a shit? And then
okay. But I thought you were saying like they tried to do like a gag rather than advance a story or give us a lingering plot thread. But I feel like those are lingering plot threads.
No, I know. I was kind of saying that, and believe me, there's been a lot of these fucking YouTube videos where they talk about all the plot threads that have not been resolved. But I mean, just think about some of the stingers that we've seen, like where fucking Thanos shows up in the first Avengers movie. like they find Bucky in like the end of Ant-Man or something, where he's like trapped and like, oh, I got a guy that can help out with this. Like there's all this shit that like gets you excited for future movies, and I feel like they haven't really been cashing their checks. They haven't been like kind of paying things off. Like it's like all this stuff is going like this, like where it's all lateral, but we're not like moving forward. We're not moving upward with like the excitement of the stories. And I feel like, I know I'm like rambling a lot here, but I feel like the post-credit stinger that we're going to get in this is either that we're going to see Wanda in a post-credit stinger, or we're going to see Speed in a post-credit stinger. And Speed is a person who is fast like Quicksilver.
Yeah. Yeah. So on that level, I'll agree with you there. So there's nothing major that's like super crazily exciting. Yes. And everything feels like it's just the association to, was it phase 5, whatever the hell phase it is. I don't know.
I think it's 5. Yeah.
5. Whatever phase association is really just timing than anything else. Because it was released during this time, and there's no really majorly connecting threads here. And I don't even see how. I feel like they're going to use Secret Wars as like a backdoor to just throw all this shit together and say, yeah, sure, here you go. Here's everything.
Right. And with Robert Downey Jr. as Dr. Doom.
Yeah. That's going to be how they slip it under the rug there. It's like, oh, here's RDJ back.
Yeah.
Skip all this shit.
Yeah. Because there's so much stuff. I mean, I recommend to you, and I might have even shared this with you, but to everyone in general, just check out one of those videos where they talk about all the stingers, post-credit scenes that haven't been resolved in Marvel. There's tons of them.
Yeah. The other thing we have to consider with that too is that we're comparing this to the earlier movies, stingers, where this was all new and stuff, and those were movies. We did mention that the last big stinger was from the Marvels.
Right.
With where Spectrum ends up in an alternate reality and Beast is there from, Kelsey Grammer Beast. These are TV shows. So, I mean, they are lesser in a way. And I don't want to say TV shows are a lesser form of media than movies, but in a way they kind of are. You have to spread a budget out a lot further.
Yeah.
And you have to spread it out. I mean, the whole idea is that you're selling this to either sell your streaming site or sell ads in it, so that they make it as long as they possibly can, just to keep people interested. So it's different, and I don't. It's almost unfair to compare like finding Cap in the ice or seeing Thanos to the stingers at the end of these shows.
Man, that is a really good point. Really good point. I mean, yeah, and we're going to record Penguin after this too, and it shows that like there are shows that are like just as good as any MCU movie, but in general, the MCU stuff has been the streaming stuff has been sort of like C-level kind of stuff. But let's just talk about some of the other things that are really good in this episode. I really like when Billy's powers start to manifest and like he can hear his parents' thoughts. I thought that was really a great scene. And then he has a boyfriend, but his boyfriend is not Hulkling.
Yeah, this is something that I was really disappointed in the sense that his name is Eddie. I also kind of hate that on this phone, and we saw this in the first episode, his name in the phone is Boyf. That's just annoying to me. I don't know why that bothered me, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just too old. But I was disappointed that his name is Eddie. I do feel like it's a little close to Teddy, and that means that what's going to happen with Teddy. I do, and we've said before, like, are they gonna insert Scar as a stand-in for Teddy here? I don't know how they would pull off Teddy, really, like a Kree Skrull hybrid.
Yeah.
In this, I feel like if anything, they could have maybe did it in Secret Invasion.
Right.
But at this point, because they didn't do that, and just Eddie, not Teddy, that makes me fearful for what's going to happen with Teddy. Hopefully.
Yeah, well, that's another possible stinger that I was thinking about of like maybe we cut to the present day again, and then like Eddie is around, and he interacts with Billy, And then like Eddie goes off on the side, and then he morphs into Scar. I think we talked about this in the last recording, that like Scar could be Teddy too. You know what I'm saying? Or Hulkling.
So maybe Eddie actually is. That actually could work.
Yeah.
I think that would actually be I mean, I don't think they're smart enough to do that.
I know. They never are. Yeah. Because they got to. Go ahead.
I think that would really work.
Yeah. I mean, it's like they got to cash their checks, right? Because they do this stuff where they kind of put like placeholders for stuff like guys like you and me to go in and be like, oh my God, is that Mephisto? Oh my God, or is it the Dark Avengers? Like, is this? Is this? And we get so fucking excited. We make these stories in our head, and then they don't make that kind of stuff. They just
all I can think about right now is the scene where they're where after Billy tells Eddie about all this stuff that he's not really William Kaplan, he's Billy Maximoff. There's a point where Eddie takes his jacket off, and he says something like, "No, you're gonna have to hide those guns," implying large muscles. I'm like, shit, that's like the first thing you think of with the Hulk. You think of he has giant fucking arms.
Yes.
So shit, man. Now I'm gonna be so disappointed when this doesn't pan out.
Right. Now here's the thing. There's a scene that's right after what you were just describing, where they go to reveal a character and they show the back of the character, and he's like in the distance, so you don't know who it is. Then you see the back of him, and he's in a trench coat, and he's got long hair, and so you're like, who is this? And his voice.
Oh no, I 100% knew that was Ralph Boner the whole time.
All right. Sorry, jeez. Okay. Why? Because his username was Bonerific 69 or something like that.
No, even before that, like they're talking about someone who's a character that's willing to talk about what happened in Westview. Like it had to be that character. There's no other character that was memorable enough that would fit in here. I
just thought it was going to be like, I realized it's like, okay, that makes the most sense for the story, but I was like, is there some kind of magic person? I knew it wasn't going to be Doctor Strange, but I was like, it's going to be Wong or something. But then for it to be Ralph Boner, I actually think that's perfect.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And just the way that Evan Peters like plays him and like what he says, it's a really great scene. It's like one of the best scenes in the whole series so far.
Yeah, I agree.
Because he's so over the top, and he's basically explaining the events of WandaVision, and he's talking about that like he lived with Agatha and he had to do all these horrible things. And it's just this great scene because it's funny. It helps you remember everything that happens in WandaVision, and it also makes you think about, oh yeah, Agatha's kind of a fucking asshole.
Yeah, and I really like the connection too that you're reminded of shortly after that when we're seeing. Actually, I don't know when this was before or after, but we see when Billy first meets Agatha, and she's still trapped there. She has the Boner family reunion, and I love that they kind of wrapped all that up with that saying that he just left his house there and he just got out of there. So like, she's living in his house and has his clothes. Like I fucking love that.
Yes. And they re-show that whole scene just like you said. And it's great because she has like fucking, I don't know what it is, like clamps or something. And it's like her gun. And, and she thinks she's in this like police interrogation room, but it's just like this living room. Great sequence. I fucking love that.
Yeah.
But in between those two scenes, though, Billy's doing some research. He's listening to the Devil's Road song, and he kind of has this revelation. And I love all the stuff on Agatha throughout her life, her long life. And there's one point where like Dolly Parton is slapping her because apparently she was the inspiration for Jolene. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. I mean, good fucking episode. I think best episode of the season so far.
Yeah, I agree. I hope they keep it up. Yeah.
Yeah. So we covered pretty much all the points I want to make. Is there anything else you wanted to say about episodes 5 and 6 of Agatha?
No, but I'm very curious what happened with Aubrey Plaza.
Yeah. There's only 2 episodes left, right?
Yeah, 7 and 8. So
yeah, so obviously she'll be back probably within the next one. I guess also one last thing I kind of want to say was that Agatha is very manipulative in the last scene where she's talking to Billy, but she's also like super condescending, and like Catherine Hahn just takes it like over the top where she's kind of like dancing around and changing the tone of her voice and stuff. I just really liked that scene where she's covered in mud and he's really not saying anything. I really like that scene a lot too.
Oh, I also that reminded me of the one line that Agatha says in that scene where Billy says, "I'm not like you," and that's like, and she says, "That's not the first time I've heard that." That was fucking perfect.
Yep. Agreed. And I actually really like how she deduced that he was going for Tommy too, because she was like, "Oh, well, you looking for your mom? No, she gave you up for these people. You're looking for your dad." She said something like Robo Dad with the flesh and wires or something. She said something like that. Yeah. And then so she deduces that he's looking for Tommy. Just a really great scene. I mean, this show has really turned a corner, and I'm pretty excited. Hopefully, there's a payoff.
I really hope they stick the landing on it. I think this is this is definitely going to be pretty high in my rankings of MCU shows as of now. So
yeah,
I hope they stick it.
Totally agree. Yes. So we're about to stick it to each other with our Joy of the Penguin, which Brian and I are going to talk about next. So if you like that show, make sure that you subscribe. Check out that video that's going to come out tomorrow. But thank you for watching. We'd love to hear what you think about Agatha and the future of the MCU. We'll catch you cats later. It's almost